Hello and welcome to D6 Damage. I'm D6.
And I'm D8.
And I'm D10.
Today we're talking about the Magus class for Pathfinder. So fellas, the Magus class is all about combining martial combat with spell-slinging power. But there do seem to be some issues which make it not necessarily the best, especially at low levels. So we're going to start off by talking about just the general class features. Starting with one of the main features that you get, starting at first level, called the Arcane Pool. This is basically a pool of magical energy that the Magus has access to.
Yeah, it works a lot similar to like the key pool of the monk, or like the Arcanist Arcane Pool, which was based off this Arcane Pool. And it gives you a lot of really nice things. It's kind of unfortunate you don't get a whole lot of points unless you're syncing favorite class bonus things from various races in.
Yeah, isn't it your intelligence modifier plus half your Magus level?
Half your Magus level to a minimum of 1.
Okay.
But it does refresh every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to remember, and there are other ways, depending on if you have the right equipment, you can refresh it on your own, if you're lucky.
So one of the other things you can use the Arcane Pool for, and it's actually my favorite feature of this class, is that you can expend 1 to give a +1 enhancement bonus as a swift action to any weapon you're holding for a minute. And for every 4 levels beyond that, you get an additional +1 bonus, and at 5th level, you can exchange a +1 bonus for an enchantment, like Dancing or Flaming Burst or Keen or that kind of thing.
Now, after that minute's up, you can always spend another arcane point to keen it again.
Yeah,
or get
it's
another
just a swift action to do that, so you can do it easily. It's really nice because that allows you to essentially use mundane weapons as enchanted weapons. It's really cost efficient, and you can stack it with already enchanted weapons.
Okay, so it stacks if you're already using an enchanted weapon. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Yes, but you cannot use the ability twice on the same weapon. That does not stack.
Well, that makes sense. Well, no. It makes sense that it doesn't stack.
Okay, now let's talk about spell combat, which is one of the main Magus abilities.
Me and D8 are probably of the same mind where it's not the biggest feature you should focus your Magus class on, but it's basically like the grit from the Gunslinger. You pick your moments to use it.
I disagree there. Okay, I think, and I played the Duskblade in 3.5, which was very similar to this class. I think spell combat, which basically works the same as 2-weapon fighting, except you can cast spells as your offhand weapon, essentially. I think it's worthless. I think it's a cool idea. I think a lot of the class is based around it, and I think it just doesn't work well enough to be worth putting things into.
Now, why do you say it doesn't work well? Is it because you don't have a high enough base attack bonus?
Well, that's part of it, but really, you can get around that with the fact that you're doing a lot of touch. The problem I see for it is the fact that you are provoking attacks of opportunity. And so you have a risk of losing the spell anyway. So you're taking a minus to hit no matter what, with a chance of missing.
Yeah, but you can defensive cast, and that defensive cast DC is always static, so it becomes easier and easier.
Yeah, but it's still difficult.
So this comes to the problem of the Magus not being viable or as viable as it is later levels.
Yes. At later levels, you get a lot of bonuses either to that concentration or just to hit in general. You can also choose, using spell combat, to reduce your to hit to give you bonuses to the concentration to cast defensively, which is really nice.
Yeah, but let's not act like the Magus is the only base class here that has the same problem. All the other base classes seem to have this problem. The Gunslinger, the Inquisitor.
Disagree. Look at a fighter. Fighter off the ground.
Well, we're not here to talk about fighters. We're talking about
I was talking about base classes, not core classes.
Fair enough.
Alright, so, with spell combat, you do have the potential of doing more damage and getting more attacks off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Spell Strike is another ability that the Maguses get. What that allows you to do is basically add the damage from an attack spell with a range of touch to your physical attack with the weapon. So basically, to use an example, you would be combining Shocking Grasp and your attack.
Yes, and you can do this as a free action, so you can do it within the same amount of time as you casted it.
Yeah.
Well, more importantly, it means that you can attack essentially if you casted it as part of your spell combat. It gives you another attack with your sword at full base attack.
Okay.
I think that's more DM discretion, since you're technically using your sword attack.
No, because it says instead of making the free melee touch attack normally allowed to deliver, you make one free melee attack with his weapon.
Okay.
Okay, now, when you use this ability, you still have to cast a spell normally, right?
Yeah,
Okay, you just replace the free touch attack with a free sword attack.
with a free melee attack, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but with spell combat, you're casting that as a swift action instead of your standard action.
So regardless of how good spell combat is, you can use it with spell strike in order to get 2 sword attacks off, even if you have a base attack bonus of less than 6.
Okay. So the ability to do more attacks with your sword, in addition to the magical damage, is another thing that the Magus can do, even at early levels.
Yes, because he gets spell strike at level 2.
Okay. Now let's talk about the Magus Arcana. These are basically additional magical abilities that the Magus gets that run off arcane points. The Magus Arcana that you have access to kind of range in usefulness from really good to very situational. Now guys, I'm sure you have your favorite Magus Arcana.
Well, one of my favorite that I always take early is Arcane Accuracy. You can spend an arcane point to add your intelligence modifier to hit, and you can do that any number of times per day.
Yeah, there are some like that give you some really good things that aren't limited, and then there's some that give you really good things, but they're only once per day. And for example, there's Concentrate, which is a fantastic ability. It
gives you a free reroll and
+4, a reroll at +4.
Yeah.
For any concentration.
So if you had your intelligence modifier, combat casting, and that, you'd have a +12 to your next concentration.
So yeah, that's really good. The problem is it's once per day.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it would make spell combat really good. Like, it would make up for all of the problems of spell combat if it were times per day equal to your intelligence modifier.
Okay, now that's something you can talk with your DM about if he's willing to work with you. And you don't think it would break the character too much, right?
Not too much.
If it's just relegated to equal your intelligence modifier, that is plenty balanced.
Because if you're looking at it, you're thinking that for most characters that's going to be at maximum of 5 until they start adding on items that, mess with your attributes.
Yeah.
And by that point, then you're
at a high enough level where it's not really going to make a difference.
Yeah, and it can stand alone.
And then we have Arcana that, I guess, the creators of the class, Paizo, wanted the Magus to give you the option to be a Mage Hunter. This being one of the first in my list is Dispelling Strike. You spend an arcane point or more as a swift action to bear your weapon with a special power, and you attack a creature within the next minute, and they have to make a concentration check on their next spell.
Okay, now can that do anything for spells that are already in effect?
Potentially it could, since the subject of it acts as similar as a target of the effect targeted by the dispel magic.
Okay, so that is a potential solution to the guy with stone skin, mage armor, shield, and all the rest.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, but...
So essentially, if this was Baldur's Gate, you could win.
Nobody wins at Baldur's Gate, though.
Not unless they got Dispel.
Alright, one of my favorite Magus Arcana is Spell Shield, which allows you to spend an arcane point as, I believe it's a free action or an instantaneous?
Immediate action.
As an immediate action to give yourself an AC bonus equal to your intelligence modifier.
Until the next turn.
Until the next turn.
Well, till the end of your next turn, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Till the end of your next turn.
So if you activate it on someone else's turn, it's good through the enemy turn and into your next turn.
And then
nice.
Then there are the Arcanas that seem, if you want to just bring out that ultimate spell of, maximum pain. There's Empowered Magic, which gives you the effect of the Empower Feat, but you don't lose as many spell slots, but it's once per day. And same goes for
Maximized.
maximized magic, quickened magic, silent magic.
One of my favorite ones is actually ranged magic, because it essentially gives you, it increases the range of spells. So it's like having reach with your shocking grasp. It's like having wacky wavy inflatable arms.
Yeah, it's like being Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah, and woo, and touch people. And it's really funny because you can increase it however far you want. It's just you take more and more penalties. So that guy's 50 feet away. I can take like a minus 24 or something ridiculous, but I still have a chance of touching him with my shocking grasp.
Now, keep in mind that a lot of these are not, a lot of these aren't available when you first get your first Magus Arcana.
And there's my problem with the Arcanas. There are good ones that you can get at 3rd level when you first get your choice.
It scales like the Paladin Mercies, though.
But the ones that are really fun, useful, or really make the class worth doing are level 6, level 9, or level 12.
Now, throughout your career as a Magus, how many Magus Arcana do you end up getting?
One every 3rd level. So
unless you spend some of your bonus feats or regular feats taking extra Arcana.
Or I suppose also with the elf favored class.
Yeah, isn't that one every 6 levels, though?
Yeah.
So that's just something to consider. You do have to choose wisely, because you have a limited number of Magus Arcana. It's not like grit or deeds.
Yeah, I'd say that when you're playing in Magus, you don't have a lot of room for error in your character creation.
All right. So now let's move on to Spell Recall.
The ability, I think, really helps the Magus class since it gives it more casting potential than, say, the Wizard.
I don't know about casting potential, but I think it is really great because you are so limited on your amount of spells per day. And this really gives you an ability, because essentially at 4th level, you can recall spells you've already cast.
Well, Wizards get literally just as many spells per day. I looked at the table.
They do?
Yeah.
Interesting. With a swift action, you can recall any single Magus spell that you've already prepared and cast. And all you do is expend points from your Arcane Pool equal to the number of the spell level.
If it's not exactly the same, it's pretty damn similar.
Well, it's not going to be exactly the same because Wizards get them at earlier levels.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm looking at it here. As a Wizard, you get fewer spells per day than the Magus, but you get not your full 9 levels instead of just the Magus 6 levels. Now, Spell Recall, that costs you a point from your Arcane Pool, right?
As many points
as equal to the level of the spell.
Okay.
So if you're casting Fireball, which is a 3rd level, right, guys?
Yeah, that's certain.
Then that's 3 points.
And a swift action.
All right, but if you're using it on a low-level spell like Shocking Grasp, you could potentially be getting multiple casts out of that.
Absolutely.
And multiple shields, don't forget.
Yeah.
I think that's a great selling point. But you still have to get to 4th level before you can use that.
True. All right. Now, a Magus is a little bit like a fighter, because it's basically one of the first hybrid classes of a fighter and a wizard. So, like a fighter, they get bonus feats. So what are the restrictions on those?
I believe must be selected from the lists of combat, item creation, or meta magic feats.
So
Okay.
it's like the fighters, except you also get creation and meta magic.
All right, so combat feats are one of the broadest categories, so you're pretty much guaranteed to find at least something that you want with your bonus feat.
Yeah, but it's at 5th level and every 6 levels thereafter.
That's true, you don't get many of them.
So you get a maximum of 3.
All right. One of the abilities that you get later as a Magus is called Knowledge Pool. Now, what does that do?
When he's preparing his spells, he can decide to expend... I'm going to read straight from the book for you guys.
Please.
Expend 1 or more points from his Arcane Pool up to his Intelligence bonus. For each point he expends, he can treat any one spell from his Magus spell list as if it were in his spellbook, and can prepare that spell as normal that day.
So basically what that allows you to do is to take anything from the Magus spell list, even if it's not in your spellbook.
Yes, I think that is what it means.
All right, now correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't know if that's necessarily that helpful because, unfortunately, the Magus doesn't have the most robust spell list.
Well, yeah, but...
Well, I'd say it is kind of helpful because when you get to the later spells, or the higher levels, where you don't have too many per day, and I mean spells known.
Yeah.
You can get there's a lot of like second level spells or third level spells that are useful, but there's no way you're going to have them all in your book.
Okay, that's a fair way to use it. Sorry. Now, one of the, in my opinion, better features that the Magus class gets are the armor proficiency bonuses that he gets as he levels up.
Oh yeah, this is kind of a staple for the Magus when it comes to close quarters fighting.
And again, I have a problem with it. You get light armor at the very beginning, which is really nice, but you don't get medium armor till 7th level. I mean, frankly, I can spend a couple feats and get there at 3rd.
Yes, but the question is, do you really want to waste feats on that?
Well, it kind of depends on how long the game is going, because if we're playing a low-level game, then the cost in feats is worth it to get a higher AC. But if we're kind of playing the long game, and you may potentially have other uses that you want to put the feats toward. Especially if we're going to level 20 mythic tier Magus of ultimate smackdown awesomeness.
He also gets heavy armor proficiency at 13. And unless you take feats for it, he's like one of the only arcane classes that's able to cast in heavy armor, not counting divine classes.
I believe he is the only arcane class capable of casting in heavy armor.
Alright, now let's talk about actually building your Magus, now that you have an idea of what he can do. First off, let's look at ability scores. Like a wizard, a Magus runs off of intelligence for his spells.
But that's kind of where the similarity ends.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be in close combat. So you need to choose... and luckily, most Maguses will go with a weapon finesse weapon. So they don't need to split from quite as many different attributes. But you're going to have to choose between that strength or that dexterity.
Well, if you want other modifiers, you could just spend all of it on intelligence, dexterity, and strength, and just have flat constitution, wisdom, and charisma.
That's what I was saying.
No, you were saying either or.
Well, you're going to have to choose which one to focus in.
Okay.
Alright, now D8, I want your opinion on this. If I wanted to have just a 16 in my intelligence, is that a good idea for a Magus? Because that would allow me to cast all potential spell levels.
Sorry.
Yeah, it would, but it would limit your pool, and it would limit your
DCs.
DCs. Thank you. That's the word I was looking. It's not really a word, but it's risky, I'd say. I think you could make it work, especially since I personally wouldn't lean heavily on spells, unlike D10. So you could make it work, but you'd have to know what you're doing.
All right, D10, what do you think?
Honestly, I'd spend that maximum into intelligence. That gives you more arcane points to work with, and therefore later on gives you more opportunities to recall spells.
All right. So now the physical attributes are again important for the Magus because your strength or your dexterity is going to determine your ability to hit. Now, how do you guys feel about Constitution?
Constitution, you can never go wrong with points in Constitution.
Constitution is very nice.
It's not necessarily, vital, which is kind of funny. That's what it is. But I would always have at least a +1. I generally try to get a +2 in there if I have the points.
Yeah.
But to go with none leaves you at a base D8 for health every level, plus maybe 1 from your favorite class if you choose to go that way. I don't know. It's. I think you're much better off.
It's risky for a frontline class.
Yeah, especially since you don't get medium armor till 7th level, so you're not looking at too much in the way of AC. You're looking at like an 18, roughly.
Mm-hmm. Well, unless you took a spell shield at 3rd or 6th level, then you'd have a bit better.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's talk about wisdom. Is wisdom really important for this class?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
It's useful. Will saves are always useful. But this class does come with high will saves.
Yeah.
I'd say it's more important to put points into your dexterity, your strength, or your constitution than it is to put in your wisdom.
You know, unless you're playing with a DM that loves enchantment and breaking DCs up to 30.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Alright, so I think that kind of leaves charisma as your ultimate dump stat, as it is for many classes.
You know, unless you're stuck with a party that has no set party face.
Well, it's a little rough there, because I agree that it is the dump stat, but you also, one of your class skills is like Intimidate, and there's some others, and it's risky. A party without high... I've come into situations with low charisma characters where I've needed to bluff my way out. Mm-hmm. And it's been difficult.
Did any of them end well?
Yes. But only on really good rolls.
Okay, then.
So, I'm a little hesitant to say dump too much into charisma, or from charisma.
Alright, so let's move on to feats. What feats do you think really complement this class? Obviously, it's going to depend on how you're building your Magus, but...
Well, I'm always a fan of spell focus evocation, and if your DM allows it, the Mage Tattoo from Rise of the Rune Lords is just a beautiful feat that requires spell focus. It makes you cast as though you were one caster level higher.
Right, that's especially good for early in the game or low-level campaigns where you want to be putting as much damage out on the field as where you want to put as much damage out on the field as possible.
Yeah, first level 2d6 Shocking Grasp is game breaking.
Yes.
I'm not too sure about this. Again, depending on your on how you build your Magus, but Spring Attack might also be worth your time.
Okay, Spring Attack is a little bit difficult because it is you have to sink a number of feats into getting up there, although it is potentially very helpful.
Yeah, I would say that if you're going into spell combat, and I still don't recommend it.
Combat casting.
No, actually.
Really?
Mobility.
Yeah, mobility is a definite thing that you're going to want for spellcasting because that'll give you an additional +4 to your AC on attacks of opportunity.
It's a must-have.
And if you're for some reason concentrating on defensive casting at low levels, why are you? But combat casting is really important if you're trying to make those concentration checks.
Alright, now how do you feel about standby feats like Weapon Focus to give you the increased bonus to hit, or can the Magus take Fighter feats? I forget.
Only with his bonus feats.
Fighter training. It says he can take a fighter equal to his level.
No, equal to half his level.
No.
So yeah, but only with the bonus feats and only after 10th level.
I'm not seeing that stipulation.
A Magus counts as 1/2 his total Magus level as his fighter level.
Yeah, but where's the bonus feat stipulation?
The bonus feats, every 6 levels after, or 5th, you get a bonus feat, which can be a combat feat.
Yeah, but I'm just saying he could also use his regular growth feats as well.
Yes, but I'm saying he can only use the regular growth feats after 10th level.
Okay.
I'm saying he can select them from the bonus feats.
Alright, so you could get Weapon Specialization, which would give you a +2 on damage rolls, but you would have to wait until level 8 to do that.
Yeah, and you could theoretically just take Power Attack. I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, I don't think that's viable for the Magus.
Well, it is if you're playing the Magus a certain way. Like I said, I would focus, after my one experience with Magus, and my experiences with the Duskblade of 3.5, I would say that your powers are actually better used casting your Initiator with ranged, and then just getting into melee combat. In which case, you know what? It might not be bad to take Power Attack.
Okay. And also, I feel like you can never go wrong with Extended Arcana.
No, you can never go wrong with that.
Yeah.
Alright. So, let's talk about the skills that the Magus class has. As an intelligence-based class, you're going to have access to at least a number of skill points in addition to the 2 you get per level.
But you actually are pretty bare bones when it comes to class skills. You do get some from similar to the fighters, like climb and swim, and you get craft, fly, intimidate, which I said that's got to come from the fighter side, I guess.
You got at least 3 knowledges, but that's not. But if you have a bard in the class, that's not really worth your time.
And you know what? As much as I love knowledge, some of them are just not that useful. You can use planes. You get Arcana, Dungeoneering, and planes. And planes and Dungeoneering are pretty, like...
super situational.
Yeah. Arcana, you can never go wrong with. You always want to max points in that.
Yeah.
But the other 2, like, I dump at least 1 point in, because that'll give you probably around an 8.
Spellcraft might be vital to dump into as well.
Oh, absolutely. You also get Ride, which...
Depends on your DM.
If your DM is nice enough to give you corridors where you can actually have a horse, you should be playing a Cavalier. Sorry.
And if you have one of those DMs that throw swim at you, suddenly you want at least maybe 1 or 2 points in there.
And when you ask your DM, can I be a Cavalier, make sure to ask, are we going to be on a boat? Or are we going to be in tunnels? Because those 2 things and Ride do not work together.
Well, that's another class analysis altogether.
Yeah. Bad experiences.
All right, now let's talk about one of my favorite powers of any class, the power of stuff. What sort of stuff would you recommend for the Magus?
Well, there's definitely a couple ways to play the Magus. One way, and there's certain archetypes that go into this that I really like the Black Blade is just... it doesn't really change the class that much, but it's fun.
Yeah, it gives you an extra personality to play with.
It gives you an intelligent item, and you do get some good bonuses from it. You lose an Arcana, but if you take extra
it's kind of
Arcana,
worth it.
It's fun.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that, you're going with a one-handed slashing, or a rapier or a sword cane. Those are the only things that you can use it with. But that one, you get a scaling magic weapon.
That can't be sundered.
As long as it has arcane points.
Yeah, so you are set on your weapon from the very beginning, which is really nice.
Yes, it is.
But one way I'm going to be trying out pretty soon is a polearm Magus.
Which completely ignores its spell combat.
Which is useless anyways. But the reason I'm doing a polearm is actually because of a... material in Ultimate Equipment called Whir Root. And essentially when you crit with Whir Root, you get a life point into your Whir Root. And depending on how much you pay is the maximum life points it can hold. But as a swift action, you can take a life point from Whir Root and add it to your Arcane Pool. But this material only works with wooden or wooden hafted weapons.
Which is why you need to go with a pole arm or some other weapon
or
like
an
that.
axe.
Or an axe.
But axes don't crit very often. So I'm going with a Bardiche, because the Bardiche gets the 19 to 20 crit range.
Right. Now, if you keen the weapon, then it will be 17 to 20, right?
Yes, which is what I'll be doing, because once I hit 5th level, I can do that with the Arcane Pool.
Right. And it's always important to remember with Keen that different sources of Keen don't stack with each other. They overlap.
They do not.
It will never be higher than 17 to 20.
16 to 20.
Sorry.
On certain weapons.
Yeah.
I am equally towards critical, but I go towards the weapon it was obviously designed for, the swords. And I usually if the DM allows, I'll spend an extra exotic weapon proficiency feat for a katana, because it's worth the feat taking, because it has the damage die of a longsword and it has the crit range of a rapier.
Now, me personally, I like the rapier. I think that's at least thematically a cool weapon, and it has a very high crit range.
Yeah, I think it's a solid choice. As far as armor goes, I'd say because you have access to it, you should go with a chain shirt off the start.
Yeah, but if you're starting with the medium or heavy proficiency, pick at least the one that won't give you the biggest check penalty.
Well, I would go with one which allows you to get the most dexterity and the most AC.
Which would be the one that give you the least check penalty.
Not necessarily.
Well, it depends on the character build you're going with. Mm-hmm. If you're going with a high-strength character, then, a little bit of extra armor, like the chain shirt, definitely not a bad thing. But if you're going with a super high dex Magus, who's, like doing the whole dancing through combat thing, then you'll just want to go with something with a fairly high maximum dexterity bonus, like leather armor.
And standard traveling gear applies. Oh, and always go for a traveling tome, because you never know when the DM might be a bit of a dick and steal your spell book.
Yes, it's always good to have extra spell books.
I just don't let people take my spell book, but
well,
that's just how I handle the problem.
Well, sometimes you just can't stop it.
Right. Finally, let's talk about race. What races would you say dovetail well with the Magus class?
Well, elves, humans, can't go wrong.
Well, human is the ultimate Swiss Army knife.
Are they uncommon or featured races? The tiefling and the sylph.
Tieflings and sylphs are both featured.
Well, those are two featured races that I think do mesh well with the Magus in terms of ability points.
Now, I don't really believe you should ever choose a race that goes with the class. I think you should choose them kind of separately. I think you should do it for character value and story value rather than min-maxing. But I agree, I like the idea of elf Maguses because you really got the age and kind of aloofness to go with a mage swordsman. And the sylphs line up really well, and so I guess tieflings do too.
So you would rather try Aasimar Magus somehow?
No, I would stick with elf, personally. But that doesn't mean you're limited to it. Right. I mean, you can go with other races and be just fine. The gnome has a fantastic favored class bonus.
Yeah, it's just in terms of ability points, those are the only ones that give you intelligence bonuses.
I'm just saying you shouldn't count out the gnome.
Like I said, the gunslinger analysis, I don't really care for races that give me 20 movement speed.
Well, the good thing about the Magus is Expeditious Retreat, and you've got 50 movement.
Yeah.
So, now, in terms of RP, why don't we come up with a couple of example Maguses that they may have run into just in pop culture or in movies and stuff. I think the one I tend to think of most is Geralt from The Witcher.
Well, you can also argue Geralt's actually a ranger as well.
Well, you can argue he's an inquisitor. I mean, you can argue a lot of things when it comes to him.
Very true.
He can definitely play any of them.
Another one I would say is Morgan or any of the Grey Cloaks from the Dresden Files. They fit rather well, actually.
Yeah, that's definitely sort of an arcane swordsman who mixes magic and stabbing someone with something sharp.
And there are certain examples from just straight up D&D, like from the Forgotten Realms, Year of Rogue Dragons. There's a I don't remember I think they call it a spell blade. No, they call him like a spell blade or something like that.
X-blade?
No, stop it, just stop it. Anyway, in the Forgotten Realms, in the Year of Rogue Dragons, there's an example of one which focuses a lot more on boosting stats, which is something you can do with the Magus, and something that I don't think is a bad idea to do, and then letting his rapier do the talking.
To a certain extent, Gandalf is kind of a Magus, since he fights with both a staff and a sword throughout the trilogy.
And I would argue he's more either
he's
wizard with a weapon proficiency or just an elf wizard, because the elves get longsword proficiency.
Well, technically, let's never forget that Gandalf is technically a demigod, so he can do whatever the hell he wants.
Like, he's a level 20 wizard, okay? Let's be honest.
Okay, yeah.
Also, I think your character in Fable just sort of ends up degenerating into a magic sword-wielding guy.
Yeah, unless you're really focusing on those arrows, man.
Yep.
Because you can get some dumb stuff with that.
And obviously, let's not forget the legendary order of sword-wielding magicians, the Jedi.
Oh, yes, of course.
They have actually the really good kind of spell combat vibe because they do the lightsaber combat and like these little pauses they like force push.
Yeah.
Which is something you can get as a 3rd level spell. And it's really good.
If only you can target multiple people.
But so there is like precedent.
There is overlay.
Yeah.
Or overlap.
All right. I would say that just about does it for the Magus class. Thank you for watching D6 Damage. I'm D6.
I'm D8.
I'm D10.
And if you're interested in more character builds and class analysis guides, be sure and check out D6 Damage right here on YouTube. Thank you for watching.